Hello there guys, rational perspective on Liverpool 4, Chelsea 1. Chelsea really hammered and embarrassed at Anfield. The first time there's been a winner in this game since, 2020 I'm going to guess, maybe, or 2021. There's been a lot of draws with these two teams where they've looked pretty even. That simply wasn't the case tonight. And yes, some of my post-match analysis can look at two blatant, or at least one very blatant penalty that Chelsea should have been given. It looked like to me, preference towards one team tonight from the officials. But we can't get away from Chelsea's frailties and Chelsea's inability to compete seriously tonight. When you are building a team, I may have mentioned this in earlier reviews this season when I've been disappointed by Chelsea performances, but if you're building a young squad, if your whole idea is we're looking towards the future with young players, I can sort of take that if I'm watching a team in these bigger games where they fall short because the quality of the opposition is simply better. And a moment of genius, or just you understand that we're coming up against a team who are years ahead of us in so many areas of the club. And you can sort of handle that, right? And in ways earlier in the season, especially at home in some of these bigger games, that's what I think inspired Chelsea fans a bit. But what I can never take is a lack of awareness, a lack of discipline, a lack of structure, individuals over a collective, and just a lack of anything for fans to really cling on to. I mean, until Nkunku came on and gave us, like he did at Wolves, funny enough, a moment of brilliance that shows his quality. What was there for Chelsea fans to really look at and feel inspired by this game? You look at the reverse fixture of this game right at the start of the season. You look at some of the fixtures Chelsea have had this season where they've gone up against really good opposition and created chances. There wasn't even that tonight. I would have expected Chelsea to create some good opportunities, but the complete lack of that, and really that only showed up once the game was effectively dead, is an alarming thing for Mauricio Pochettino. And I still very much believe that you change the head coach, maybe you get a boost in certain areas, but I don't think you get an overall. You don't get a Tuchel, you don't get even a Gus Hiddink in 09. I've brought up these things before, but that doesn't excuse some of the things that I've seen from this team again tonight that don't fill me with great confidence compared to what I was saying post Villa, where against a decent side, I thought there were things that showed me a level of progression tactically. That seemed to be a complete regression tonight. And, if we're talking about injuries, if we're talking about player selections, Chelsea have suffered an injury crisis, and maybe, of course, this speaks to squad depth, but, Jurgen Klopp didn't start either of his first choice fullbacks tonight. At least Pochettino had one of his first choice fullbacks on, and, it's the performances of all of those players. It was Chilwell had one of his worst displays in a Chelsea shirt tonight. And again, we can talk about those things. We can talk about the lack of time these players have been together. Liverpool do also have new players as well. So I'm trying not to go overboard here, because going to Liverpool and losing is not some kind of abnormal thing for Chelsea or just a complete disgrace. Like you can't, at the start of the season or even before this week, I think some of us would have expected Chelsea to maybe lose this game, or at least, but it's the manner, I think, that really hurts at times. The starting 11, I think the biggest criticism of it, and as became apparent very early on in the game from a tactical point of view, was the lack of a focal point. I mean, I believe Armando Broja was on the bench, and the fact that he didn't even get on, I think, says a lot as the game was turning. And I think we'll have to see how his future goes over the next 24 hours with deadline day approaching, and whether he does make a move. I don't think that's a smart play by Chelsea. I don't think it was tonight, because, Man United, for instance, went to Anfield earlier in the season and got a very dour 0-0 draw, but they got their point. They set up very pragmatically. It's not a type of approach that I'm very enthusiastic about, but it was effective. The problem was Chelsea looked like they were caught between two ideas tonight, in a sense that they maybe wanted to sit in that deep block at times and understood they were going to have to deal with a bit of pressure from Liverpool, which you have to when you go to Anfield, especially given the quality of their team, and maybe infused, of course, by the Klopp news over the weekend. But there was also a sense that Chelsea structurally just looked so terrible. We were not covering space very well. The gaps between midfield and defence were being exposed very early on. The number of times Darwin Núñez got in behind our defence tonight was shocking. And I don't care how good the players are on the opposing team. If you're set up well, the number of times Liverpool were able to transition and find space. Again, if you're sitting deep, if you're unable to get the ball out of your own half, I at least expect us to cover space well and track back and stop those gaps from appearing. But the number of times Petrovic had to bail Chelsea out simply showed that the structure didn't look that good. And because there was no focal point, because there was no idea of moving forward, there were rare moments when Chelsea were able to get the ball forward and transition a little bit. I mean, you look at the lack of influence Cole Palmer had on Chelsea's play tonight. I think that tells you a lot about how bad it was for Chelsea, because he is someone that is usually involved in Chelsea's best moments. And it showed, really, because we didn't have that focal point or even someone to make a decoy run, or, you know, someone to really attract attention elsewhere, that maybe Nicholas Jackson would have, or even Breuer. I think that really worked against Pochettino. At least that's what it looked like to me. And, you know, the first goal itself, running through the centre, always bad to me. Again, gaps appearing, Chelsea being done on transition, giving the ball away in cheap ways as well. And the ease to that goal was really hard to take. It was a really big moment in the game. If Chelsea had been able to withhold some pressure, maybe even get to half-time 0-0, it maybe turns into a different game. But once you go 1-0 down, especially against this Liverpool team at Anfield, with the crowd up against you, it's a hostile environment, and it's one thing that I just don't trust with this group of players, that they're going to handle those situations very well. I'll get to the away record, because that is a real concern since winter basically started. But then the second goal itself, I think, was more of a structural thing. Yes, we can look at VAR and Ben Chilwell clearly being fouled in the build-up to that goal. But again, it begs a real question of that left-hand side, especially tracking back, and how much space was there for Bradley, who had a really good game, an academy graduate getting his opportunity for Klopp, and he finished well. But from a structural point of view, how much space was being able to be exploited by Liverpool was not something that, to me, looked like Liverpool providing moments of genius. It looked like a structural thing for me for Chelsea, and making the game far too easy for Liverpool to cut through and get those opportunities at Petrovic, which and again is a real concern. And you know, that discipline problem is something that we have spoken about so many times this season. Again, at half time, Chelsea had both of their central midfielders on yellow cards. Ben Chilwell was also given a yellow card for diving as captain. I mean, it's abysmal from Ben Chilwell. He's probably my favourite player in the current squad. I love the guy, but he was absolutely abysmal tonight. From a defensive point of view, I don't think he impacted the game to the levels I expect Ben Chilwell to. And then also from an offensive point of view, that's a moment that, to me, just it again represents a selfishness within the group that I think has to be pinned back to maybe the coach and the messaging that's going on, because Chelsea simply could not have a situation where so many players are losing their heads in that type of hostile situation. And, you know, if you look at the record of us away from home, since the November international break, we've lost 4-1 away at Newcastle. We've lost away to Man United. We've lost away to Everton. We've lost away to Wolves. The only time we haven't lost is away to Luton, and we nearly threw that away in the last 10 minutes. Chelsea, you know, I said earlier in the season in regards to Stamford Bridge, you cannot become a good team if you're awful at home, but you can also not be a good team if you're awful away. It looks like we've just basically flipped our form around. We're better at home now, but we're atrocious away from it. And sure, Anfield is a really difficult ground. A lot of teams go there and lose. A lot of teams that are better than Chelsea will go there and lose. But it is a trend we're seeing, especially in the type of performances we're now seeing away from home, that is a concern, and this team unable to deal with waves of pressure. And it's something that you just can't get around. It's like fundamental issues, and a way to, and an idea for the players on the pitch. This goes back to Pochettino and coaching, of getting round that pressure, of being at what's the outlet, what's the way we're going to get round a press. Because you know, when you go to Liverpool, it's not rocket science. We all know how Liverpool are going to deal against you. The what I want from Chelsea is an ability to get round that. Maybe you can look even towards the goalkeeper and say, okay, Robert Sanchez maybe is better from distributing than Petrovic is. Maybe we're not playing Enzo Fernandez in the right way. Maybe we're still playing players out of position. Maybe an Nkunku who plays more regularly makes a difference. Carney Chukwuemeka coming on and playing more regularly makes a difference there. But I still think these are fair criticisms. Now, Nkunku comes on, Gusto comes on, Mudryk comes on. let's just talk about Nkunku. I mean, that finish. I mean, why is his 2 goals come in such sad situations for Chelsea against Wolves and tonight? I mean, that individual moment of brilliance inside the box. He had several defenders around him. And just the way he took the ball, he turned in a tight area and then absolutely, just not levered the ball, precisely finished into the bottom corner against one of the best goalkeepers in the world. I mean, it was a type of finish and clinical edge that you just see a level with Nkunku has gone up when we have him in the team. So let's pray he stays fit, because with that level of ability inside the box, Chelsea can be a different team if everything else is working together. I mean, the problem is the 2 goals he scored have come in games where everything else has been broken. So if we can merge the two, that'd be quite good. If we can start creating good opportunities for him, you think that maybe things would be different. But Szoboszlai, his goal as well, another moment of Chelsea being exploited down the left, a ball into the box, centre-backs not dealing with it from an aerial point of view. That's another thing that has been a consistent problem. You saw the centre-backs arguing with each other of who's supposed to take responsibility for that. Really not a good sign. And who is taking responsibility in this team is a consistent question. And even after that goal, again, you were reminded, and between the 3rd and 4th Liverpool goal and the Nkunku consolation, we had another VAR call for a penalty that should have been a penalty. But the 4th goal for Diaz is, again, Badiashile simply, he looks a different player this season, and it's such a shame because he looked like such a shrewd piece of business. And the way he was beaten for that chance, I mean, there were just times tonight where it looked like Liverpool wanted it more. And at times, football is that. As much as we can talk about tactics, we can talk about quality of players. The amount of 50-50 duels that Chelsea lost tonight was really hard to take. And those are things that supporters, I think, are right to pinpoint. Because you can talk about, as I said at the start of this analysis, we can talk about levels of teams and progression of teams and where teams are at a certain point. But there is that sort of very intangible willingness and desire and unity and collective spirit that Chelsea need to have in these moments that I just don't think was there. It felt like Chelsea just accepted their fate and were very, there was no resistance to it, unfortunately. And that goal for me really summed up the game. And, if Chelsea could have, Chelsea looked like maybe they could have even scored another one and it could have turned into a really crazy couple of last minutes. But that goal just summed up where this performance was and why Chelsea were well beaten. Yes, VAR and yes, Pochettino were dreadful. The Conor Gallagher one, I've watched it back several times. I can understand why Chelsea fans are aggrieved. At the time, I was more frustrated that Conor Gallagher did not take a shot. It looked soft to me, but I can understand why some fans are frustrated. There are no arguments about the second one. And even Liverpool fans are turning around tonight. I saw them and saying, listen, we're getting a lot of favours. I mean, the penalty before half-time that could have made it 3-0. I mean, luckily we've got, Darwin Núñez was bailing Chelsea out and was trying to take out some grifters in the away end that I was very happy about. But other than that, I mean, listen, it was an atrocious performance from Tierney, and I could speak for hours about the incompetence of the PGMOL or the potential corruption of the PGMOL, because it's very hard to look at performances like tonight and feel that anyone's going to get any luck at Anfield moving forward. But for me, that's not in our control. That's not in Pochettino's control. That's not in the players' control, unfortunately, unless the club puts pressure like Liverpool have. Maybe you take a leaf out of Liverpool's book of, with replay gate earlier in the season, and you really put pressure to stop officials officiating our games. That's a separate conversation, and we have a right to feel aggrieved tonight. But the level of performance at its core, at the base level, simply wasn't good enough for me to just make it all about officials. I think if Chelsea had a better structure, if we had ridden the wave, if individuals looked more like a collective, if we had an attacking idea and a focal point of how we were going to create chances in the first half to stop that pressure, then I would be sat here more aggrieved and I'd be looking more towards officiating. The fact that there were so many individual errors and so many things that we have seen away from home over this past period, that a drop of heads, a lack of structure, a feeling that Chelsea, when things go wrong, the heads drop and we easily are beaten. Those are things that I can't pin on an official, unfortunately, as much as I want to, as much as, I absolutely think officiating is a real problem in this country. I think that'd just be a bit too better for me. and I'm more looking at how Chelsea can stop these collapses away from home. You know, I do have faith that Chelsea on Sunday against Wolves could put in a better performance. We have been better at Stamford Bridge, but there is a harsh and brutal reality that Chelsea are going to have to face this team again at Wembley in a final, where a lot of Chelsea fans will be going, a lot more Chelsea fans will be in attendance, and we have lost a lot of cup finals, especially recently to Liverpool. And between now and that game, how is Pochettino going to ensure that the team is ready for that occasion? Because tonight was a big game. It's not that, you know, you rock up to Anfield and you just go, well, it's, you know, we're going to lose. Chelsea fans rocked up to that game. It still is a big occasion. And the fact that they didn't turn up, or at least didn't show that willingness and collective spirit to get through difficult moments, does raise alarm bells for a cup final that's coming up very soon. So those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below, and I'll see you again very soon. All the best. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this show. If you're a Chelsea fan and you want more carefree content, please do hit that subscribe button. Really helps the channel out, as well as the like button and sharing it around with friends so more people can get involved in the community. And you can follow Son of Chelsea across socials at Son of Chelsea on TikTok, on Instagram, and on X. Thank you.